Hey guys, this is a quick podcast tutorial on how to edit and export the podcast. One of the things you need to know about the podcast is this intro, which is always, there's a reason that it's always sitting here. It's because I want the dB of the intro to be basically consistent week to week. I want this to sound exactly the same loudness every single week.
Thanks for listening to the Grace Hill.
And so in order to do that, it's at 1.9 dBs positive. We want to make sure that if we're starting the Sunday off, we don't delete this by hitting delete, but we just press this mute button, and then when we're ready to edit it, we hit unmute. You can choose whichever one of these. Jason doesn't really specify most times. He's pretty consistent morning to morning or service to service. Sometimes he will come to me and tell me that one service was better than the other, or one of them was shorter or longer than the other, and then I'll just take that one. But for the most part, I'll typically just take the first service. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to listen for where the beginning of the message starts, because sometimes he'll do a welcome. You don't really want to include that in the podcast. The other thing you don't want to do is include fade over from the worship. So you'll hear right here, I think this was the end of Worthy of Your Name. I'm praying at this point.
Thank you guys so much for leading us so well. Hey, I want to extend my welcome to you this morning. My name's Jason. I'm the pastor here at Grace Hill, and it's just a privilege that you're here today. Man, what a beautiful weekend we have had, and we are starting a new series today that in a lot of ways really requires no introduction.
And so seeing how as that's pretty much it steps straight into the intro, I'm just going to come here, the end of this, and I'm going to hit Command T, which just clips the clip, and I'm going to hit delete. And then I'm going to listen.
Hey, thank you guys so much for leading us so well. Hey, I want to extend my welcome to you this morning. My name's Jason.
And I'm just going to get where he says, my name is Jason. And I'm going to delete the rest of this. Whatever microphone he was using, it's not super loud, so we're going to have to bump up the dB on this. It's also really far down for some reason. So we'll bring it to 0 dB.
Here at Grace Hill, and it's just a privilege that you're here today. Man, what a beautiful weekend we have had, and
so then I'll come here and I'll
Grace Hill 901.
My name's Jason. I'm the pastor here at Grace Hill, and it's just a privilege that you're here.
I'm actually going to, for some reason, Jason wasn't super energetic at the beginning of the sermon, which is never the case. I'm just going to clip where he's just kind of casually introducing himself, and then
that you're here today. Man, what a beautiful.
Clip too much, so I hit Command Z. I'm going to come right here. See if we get it right there.
Privilege that you're here.
Come back a little bit further. Usually it's not this difficult.
Just a privilege that you're here today. Man, what a beautiful weekend we have had, and we are starting a new.
I'm actually just going to start here. Typically, he usually just starts with a lot of energy and just says, welcome to Grace Hill, yada, yada. But I'm just going to take this and scoot it over, use drag and drop.
We are starting a new series today that in a lot of ways really requires no introduction. When you see the series title, you just kind of go, yeah, I got that. I identify with that. I'm curious, how many of you here this morning would say that you've had a moment maybe recently in your life
I know this is probably dragging on. And normally this does not take as long. I'm actually going to clip it exactly where he starts asking the question.
Say that you've had a moment. How many of you with that? I'm curious. How many.
It's a better intro to his sermon than what I have originally put. So sometimes you have to mess with it a little bit. And here's what happens.
I'm curious, how many of you...
Way better. Okay, so then the only other thing you have to do, it's super easy, is come down here. This is 8 minutes in, so this has got to be where he starts to get a little louder. And then you obviously see where this stuff starts happening.
Today that so many of us in this...
I like to get it all. I like to stop him where he says, let's pray.
In this you rejoice, though now for a little while, so that the tested genuineness of your foot is tested by fire. may be found to result in praise and glory and honor at the revelation of Jesus Christ. Heavenly Father, I pray today.
So he didn't even say let's pray this time. So I'm just going to clip this, delete the rest, and then I'm going to scroll out. GarageBand's super easy if you've never used it. And then I'm going to take this little guy right here. Otherwise, your podcast will be 2.5 hours long. And I'm going to do that. And then we're going to go to share song to iTunes. I'm going to call this Stretched Too Thin 1. And then it's going to bounce the audio. This doesn't take very long. That was a much longer process than it normally is. Usually there's a very defined, well, good morning and welcome to Grace Hill, or a step straight into a sermon. That time was a little bit wonky. I don't know why. Usually he's right on it on that. It might have been just because it was an emotional day. Who knows? You can also, if you really want to know, you can figure out exactly how long Jason teaches for by just looking at this number. So, no shots fired. All right, we're almost there. One thing I would recommend, I've done this once since I've been here, is do not delete this audio until you've published this podcast, because there may be a mistake or there may be something that you've done incorrectly, or you sliced off something or you left something in that you weren't supposed to. And if you delete this audio and go to another program, it won't come back. Okay, so it's converting to AAC. You just want to make sure, I mean, worst case, I usually just leave it in there week to week. I don't even mess with it until the next Sunday when it's time to record the new podcast. This usually takes me top to bottom 15 minutes to do. If there's no videos mixed in the podcast or during the announcements or anything like that. And then it's going to start playing.
Thanks for listening to the Grace Hill Podcast. We hope you enjoyed this week's message. For more information about Grace.
All right, then what you're going to do is you're going to take this podcast, drag it to the thing, to the, I'm going to exit out of there, I'm going to minimize this. You're going to, so we got Killing Religion. I'm just going to go ahead and delete that. We got Killing Religion 2, 3. I'm going to delete that. All right, so then I'm going to go to Simplecast. We go to this one. Click on it. All this stuff is like super, super self-explanatory. I'm going to go add a new episode. If you have any tech knowledge, you should be good. Stretched Too Thin thing, part 1. Okay. And then I'm going to go to choose a file. He didn't give me the actual file, but that'll correct itself. And then I'm going to add episode, Stretched Too Thin. If you're uploading this thing, just be prepared that you're not going to be able to do anything that involves Wi-Fi while this is uploading, because it takes all of the bandwidth possible to upload this fast. The hardest part about this is just making the time to do it. Save episode. And it's going to take you to another screen. All right. So it's being processed. When you click on this arrow, it's going to give you this right here, which is what you need. You're going to then hit Command C, which is copy for those people who don't know it. We're actually just going to hit reload, and it should be ready to go. Not yet. It's almost there, because if I click on it, it's not going to give me the correct link. It's going to some audio direct file. Hit it again. We're still not there. Okay, so I'm going to open a new tab. GraceHill901.com. Whoever's doing this will probably need to go to Sunday, go to sermons. We'll need the ability to be able to access Grace Hill's page from Squarespace. I'm going to hit escape. All right. As you can see, I still have my privileges. I'm going to go to pages. Actually, I don't have to do that. This is current series. So when you get to a point where it's time to delete this, you go here, you go to edit, And then you're just going to take all of that, hit delete, and then hit apply. And all those go away. You're good to go. Then you come to Simplecast. Simplecast should be ready to go at this point. If it's not, I don't know what to tell you. Okay, there it is. So I'm going to hit that. Hit copy. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to edit it. I'm going to drop the code in, and you'll see that the audio file pops up. Then I'm going to hit save. So that's the current series. You need to come over here, go to sermons, and then you need to create a new, this is, a great time to start when you have a brand new series. Stretched to thin. And you're going to go to here, and then scroll down to code. If you don't know how to use code, like, it's fine. Like, it's not a big deal. Hit apply. Whoop. All right, so that one's ready to go. One things that you do need, we need to, I'm going to come back there and give the correct, because you see how this thing is distorted. It's not correct. We'll make sure that it's good to go. So that looks cool, but it's probably not going to work properly. Save and publish. Yeah, see how that's just not looking killer. And then you're good to go. That's all you have to do to upload the podcast. That probably took, and it was the hardest part was just the waiting aspect. So if you have any questions, let me know.